Stand by for action.
Welcome to Dogsthorpe Infant School Launchpad.
This is your captain speaking. We've been cleared for departure.
Okay, Eddie, start the countdown.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's go.
Part of the Hampton Academies Trust. It's the school where stars go to dream, believe and shine.
And we welcome to our show Lexi Rees, who's an author who says she produces books for adventurous children. Welcome to the show, Lexi.
Hello, thank you very much. A pleasure to be here and delighted to be invited to join you with your global listener base.
Now, before we get on to what you do offer, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspires you to do what you do and write what you write?
I grew up in the Scottish Highlands on a farm on the Scottish Highlands, and I love being outside. You know, being up in the hills makes my heart sing. So I find most of my inspiration for writing when I am outside. So my first series of books were written all by the sea. Either sitting by the sea or, when I was on holiday, bobbing around on boats, anything like that. So it's not going to surprise you that there was a lot of water and a lot of sailing in that particular series. But I do, whatever I'm writing, most of my books are activity books. I still, do almost all the first drafts sitting outside, which is a bit weird because it means I do more writing in the summer and I do more editing in the winter, because obviously my fingers get a bit cold in the winter. My inspiration's always outside.
So you've produced these wonderful activity books. Do you want to share a bit about your books and about what you offer the schools and parents that are listening?
Yeah, so because most of my books are activity books, and my best-selling book by quite some margin is actually a creative writing skills. It's imaginatively called Creative Writing Skills. So it's just packed with lots and lots of activities. It's aimed at Key Stage 2 primarily, so sort of 7 to 11-year-olds in UK terms. It came about because I used to be a trustee of a children's educational charity where we worked on putting a lot of programs into schools to, supplement the curriculum, the cross-curricular, co-curricular. And I just wanted something that was a bit broader. So I started putting together this activity book. And because I'd done quite a lot of work in schools, I had a good understanding of what the kids liked and what they enjoyed and what the fun bits of workshops were. And I'd seen many, many providers come into schools and do workshops. And I'd worked with providers to develop programs to bring into schools. And then I thought, you know what, I could just do this myself because I really, really love it. I absolutely love being in schools and working with the kids and just seeing, what they come up with. So I started offering some workshops alongside, and I'm with an agency who booked me out for school visits, or schools book me direct. And that's just, what I love doing. So I'll start off with a typical day would be, I go in, I start off, I do an assembly. That's usually whole school. So they're all junior schools, primary schools. And then I tend to do workshops with the Key Stage 2 pupils. So, years 4, 5, 6, 3 to 6, depending on what the school wants. And I tailor it. So, if the schools tell me that they want to work on newspaper writing, then I will design workshops that build on newspaper writing. Or if they want to work on, I've done a couple of collaborative writing projects where, receptions start off with coming up with characters, and then it gets passed up through the year group families, and with the story being built on all the way through. That's super fun to do. Exhausting because you never know where it's going. And great fun. I did that in Madrid. The British School in Madrid was the last time I ran that, and that school is massive. It was a sixth form entry, so sixth form.
Gosh.
So it was absolutely huge. I
And
was there.
what was the age of the youngest children?
So that was, well, it all went right the way through.
Right.
But I was working with years 3, 4, 5, and then there was other authors doing other age groups. And we were all there for a full week. It was an amazing experience. But that's by far the biggest school that I've ever worked with. Six forms going in is big. So so I do all sorts of different things, and but most of my school visits are around creative writing, with aiming to just supplement what the teachers are doing, reinforce some key messages. Editing, we always talk about editing. We have long conversations about editing, and I share all my journeys on editing and all my mistakes and learnings, and planning, how important planning is, and how without my first book, which was fiction, I thought I had a good plan. I did not have a good plan. I had half a plan, barely, and some ideas. And the editing from that took so much longer. So I always go through that journey with the kids, and the teachers quite like that. It usually lands quite well.
It's a fallacy, isn't it, that some people get the idea that authors just sit there and bash out this story and pass it to the publisher, and the publisher says, that's great, we'll go with it. It doesn't work like that, does it? There's a lot of there's a lot of labour goes on in between. The first draft is just a very start of a very long road. That's
just words on the page. But in many ways, that's the hardest bit, because if you've got a blank page, it doesn't write itself. So you always call your first draft is the rough draft, and obviously, when I finished my first draft of my first book, it was 18,000 words. And I was convinced it was perfect, flawless, and exactly, I had everything in it. Now, 18,000 words is actually quite short. By the time I finished editing, it was 36,000 words, because this is something I talk to the kids about. It's people have natural writing styles. So I underwrite because I rush to the action. I like adventures. I like adventurous books. So I rush to action, to action, to action. So when I go back and do my editing, I have to make sure that the mind movie is there for the readers. So, that they know that we have moved locations and that they can visualize the location, because I knew what it was in my head, but I rush to the action and don't actually tell the reader. So that's why my books get longer when I edit. I've got an author buddy who writes for grown-ups, and his last book, I think, was edited from something like 130,000 words down to 90,000. So he's completely the opposite extreme. So it's quite interesting just to explore, knowing enough about your own personal style to know where you need to. I know where my gaps are going to be. It's something I've learned. So my creative writing ones are structured around very set skills, and there are sections around descriptions, and obviously when I do workshops, that creation of the mind movie, I call it the mind movie, because obviously if you watched a movie in real life, I don't need to tell you that the forest is dark and scary or light and sunny and filled with fairies. It's kind of obvious which it is, but if you don't tell the reader, they need that mind movie so that they picture the right forest. The activities are all structured around building the skills to make your story writing stronger. And then obviously when I go into the workshops, it's a much deeper dive into whichever area the school wants to focus on, whether it's the planning side or whether it's, the descriptions or whatever bit they want to focus on.
We have parents who homeschool their children for one reason or another, who listen in on the show, and they often text me and say, don't forget us. Are these the sorts of books that perhaps a parent who homeschools could use?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they're curriculum aligned, but also I do workshops with homeschool groups. So quite often, I've got friends that have homeschooled their own children for various reasons, and very, very successfully. So a huge fan of homeschooling, and I've worked with groups of homeschool children, but just in the same way. I mean, online, rather than physically in person, because they tend to be not quite so close to my home.
And will they need extra help if they bought your book? Would they be able to start off on the book, or would they need a little bit of help if they're a parent homeschooling?
The books are completely standalone, so you could literally pick up the book. My creative writing skills, or the other writing based one I've got is called Wicked Writing Skills. So creative writing skill goes through the focus of fictional writing, and Wicked Writing skills goes through the what I call non-fictional. So in other words, recounts, newspaper reporting, marketing type adverts. If you're doing posters, that kind of type of writing. So I call it non-fiction, but obviously it's fictional because it's coming from your head. But the way it's presented is non-fiction. So those are, and each is built up. So you cover a particular aspect of that writing, and then there's maybe 6 to 8 different activities to practice skills that relate to that particular topic, and they all build up. So so they're completely standalone.
Well, that's great. That's fantastic. Now, you mentioned that you go into schools. Whereabouts are you based? Because obviously there's going to be a cost of travel, etc. So for people who are listening, whereabouts are you based?
So I'm based in the south coast of England. So I tend to, my agency will book me. As I said, I was in a school in Madrid, but most of the school visits I do are London, south coast, southeast, sort of along, and anywhere in sort of that southeast patch of London, southeast patch of the UK and London.
And would you consider doing virtual, or don't you
I do virtual where schools want it. Obviously during COVID, we all had to do
quite.
All the visits were virtual, and the agency I was with booked me for lots during that. Schools have tended to, the ones I work with have tended to go back to in person, but I did still do the occasional virtual one, and then they work well. They work well.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for your time and sharing what you offer. Folks, if you want to get hold of these books, let's find out where we can get them from. Where can we get them from, Lexi?
Well, anywhere that you can order books.
Right, brilliant.
Obviously, bookshops in person. They're all on Amazon, of course.
Yeah.
And if you want signed copies, you can usually just reach out for me, and I will sign a copy and post it off to you. So I think I've got on my website, there should be pages where you can order books directly. When I go into schools, obviously I will bring and sign books so that
Sure.
people have their signed books. But it's pretty easy to find me. I'm on all the social media platforms. Well, I've moved away from Twitter since it became X, and I've using Instagram a lot more, and Facebook. I've always liked Facebook, so I'm easy to find on there, and I'm very chatty. So if people do ask me questions, and I have schools that sometimes reach out and just want to, the kids want to ask questions, I will always respond on whatever channel you reach out to me through. So love talking to people.
That's brilliant. So that's lexirees.co.uk, and it's Lexi Rees, REES, .co.uk. Don't worry if you missed that. All of the details will be in the text of the podcast. So all you got to do, folks, if you double click on the podcast you're listening to, the text will open up and it will give you're just one click away from Lexi. Get in touch with her. And who knows, you should get into your school, get your children writing. Creative writing is the way forward. It's the way that we can unlock the children's imaginations. Poetry, reading and writing is the way forward. If we're going to build the whole child, let's start with creative writing. Lexi, thank you for your time today.
An absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
His name is Eddie Edster, he's a well-being dog, and he's here at Dogsthorpe School. He's such a little cutie, wagging his tail, and the kids all think he's cool. He makes them feel safe, he's great for mental health. He gives them confidence from his very self. not talking about money, but he brings so much wealth. He's Eddie Headstar, the well-being dog. It's Eddie Headstar, the well-being dog. It's Eddie Headstar, the well-being dog.
You have been listening to the Dogsthorpe Infant School podcast. Join Captain Dave and his co-pilot Eddie Edster, the well-being dog, on another launchpad soon. Until then, always remember to be kind, be respectful, and most of all, dream, believe, and shine. Dogsthorpe Infant School is part of Hampton Academies Trust.